So we're meeting now in that context in, as you just said, in hard times. We might say even a hinge moment of history, a world that's more dangerous and divided, a time where the rules-based international, the global order, rules-based global order is under threat, in a time when technological change is accelerating. And we really have two choices as a jurisdiction, as a country in this circumstance. We can nostalgically look back and long for the old order to somehow return, or we can build a new one with purpose and partnership. And as the most European of the non-European countries, Canada looks first to the European Union to build a better world.
All right, elbows up.
Elbows up.
Member for Thornhill.
Prime Minister told Canadians that they should judge him by the prices they pay at the grocery store. But food inflation is 70% above target. The grocery prices are up 40% in less than a decade, and all of those years the Liberals were in power. And the cost of food has risen overall more than inflation every single month that this Prime Minister has been here. Canadians should judge the Prime Minister by his words. That's only fair. But is it that he never shops for food, or is it that he thinks inflation is something that happens to other people?
Yeah,
The Honourable Minister of Housing and Infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Again, we'll come back to the number one cost for Canadians and concern is around affordability of housing.
That's so true.
I know the Conservatives and the members opposite do not care about affordable housing. We're here to take action on it. Make life more affordable for Canadians, starting with their homes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Good work.
The Honourable Member for Thornhill.
The minister cannot ignore the problem of millions of Canadians using a food bank every single month. And that hasn't changed. It happened under this Liberal government's watch. And now they're making excuses or changing the subject entirely. Canadians are getting fleeced at the grocery store. And it's only going to get worse because next year their bill will be $700 higher per family. That's another Liberal broken promise, another Liberal bait and switch by another Liberal Prime Minister. So is that the experience that he's now promising Canadians?
Yeah, we go with this.
L'Honourable Ministre des Finances.
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
We listen to Canadians, something that the Conservative may want to do a bit more. And what Canadians have told us, Mr. Speaker, is affordability is the first concern. The second is housing, and the third is the economy. What have we done, Mr. Speaker, while the leader was away? The first thing we did for Canadians was to reduce taxes for 22 million Canadians, Mr. Speaker. Everyone got a raise on Canada Day, Mr. Speaker. The second thing, we removed GST on first-time home buyer, Mr. Speaker. And we are going to build with Canadians, with every Canadian, the strongest economy in the G7. That's what this Liberal government is about.
After watching that, I think that Melissa Lantsman could beat up Gregor and FPC in a street fight at the same time. Pretty sure.
Hey, that's something everyone can enjoy.
Resuming debate. Please do that. The Honourable Member for Thornhill.
Today again to do something we do a lot in this place, cleaning up yet another mess that the Liberal government for the last 10 years created. This time we're tackling a broken border security regime that lets guns and drugs and criminals flow across the border with absolutely no consequences. Tie that together with an equally broken criminal justice system that provides no accountability for the offenders and no safety for innocent Canadians. And you get a disaster crisis level mess. How did we get here? Well, that's pretty simple. We'll walk you right through it for everybody watching, for them who might listen this time around. We'll start with Justin Trudeau and his ministers, who, by the way, are still there on the front bench, who prefer giving rights to criminals instead of law-abiding Canadians. Pieces of legislation like C5 and C75 that codify this ideology and let convicted criminals roam free through a revolving door justice system of bail with no punishments and no accountability whatsoever. We see it every single day, every story on the news, story 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, particularly in my region of the GTA. And then pile on weak immigration policies that deliver outcomes like a 632% increase in people trying to cross illegally into the country from the U.S. Sprinkle on a healthy dose of free drugs courtesy of the taxpayer, available to anyone, anywhere. And even when we know these drugs end up in the street streets or in our schools, and frankly make the plight of addiction much worse and not better. And then top it all off with a broken federal bureaucracy that is ballooned, so weak and so detached from reality that literal terrorist organizations in some case can fundraise and recruit and operate with impunity here in Canada from coast to coast to coast. Some of them even still have charitable numbers. It doesn't take a genius to realize that all of these ingredients would set you up for a ginormous, I'm not sure if that's a word, but a ginormous border security and crime crisis in this country. And you get stories like Raj Kumar Memi, convicted of smuggling 80 kilos of cocaine in 2023, sentenced to 15 years, released, escaped, hopped on a plane, and now is gone forever. Or Arjun Sanan, a 19-year-old. He was arrested for drive-by shootings and extortion, got bail, booked a flight, and now he's gone too. This is the reality of a system that the Liberals designed. Like, they actually designed this. They thought about it and thought that these were good changes, which resulted in the chaos. But apparently, no one on that side saw the things like this coming. Not even from a mile away or from their work-from-home setups. Flash forward to right now, a few months later, and what do we see? Once again, the Liberal government is showing up with a bill that actually doesn't deliver on what Canadians want and what they've asked for and what they're screaming about in the streets. A bill that claims to fix a problem, but instead proposes things that no Canadian would ever sign off on. They've cooked up legislation that keeps a broken border and immigration regime in place, while also punishing law-abiding citizens with massive expansions in federal power. C2 keeps the catch and release for criminals who traffic fentanyl and firearms in place and takes advantage of the weak laws that hurt Canadians. It doesn't add mandatory prison time for fentanyl traffickers. It doesn't add mandatory prison time for gangsters who use guns to commit crimes. And there have been several shootings in my community in Vaughan. In just 3 weeks, there's been 7. An innocent man literally gave his life to save his family from a random violent home invasion. He was shot to death in his living room. But the legislation won't guarantee that his killers or any other people terrorizing our communities are actually behind bars. We get the wait, it's going to happen. The same people who created the crisis cannot be trusted to fix it. Even worse, it still allows house arrest for even the most serious offenses. You can commit grand theft auto and still be in your living room playing the video game. At the same time, C2 puts new limits on the use of cash on our economy, ostensibly to target guns and criminals. But do we really believe that guns and criminals, the ones pushing fentanyl, the ones running guns, laundering money, are suddenly going to start following the law? Of course not. You make those assertions and you make criminals out of law-abiding citizens. Instead, it's seniors and small businesses who will be unfairly punished by this massive overreach in government power. It even goes further. Massive new powers of the federal government that threaten Canadian civil liberties. And we know this. We've seen this movie before. It's what they do every single time. They find a problem, they don't solve the actual problem, and then they massively expand their power to take more rights away from Canadians. We've seen how this happens. There is no limit to this government's hunger for power. They tried to give themselves unlimited spending power during COVID. Just 2 months ago, they sneakily removed privacy provisions from the online streaming bill and called it an accident. And now they're bearing conditions in the back of this bill that have nothing to do with border security and only further clearly show Canadians that they want more power. This isn't just overblown rhetoric. C2 will let Ottawa open people's mail without oversight, force internet companies to hand over private information, and allow them to search without a warrant in certain scenarios. That's not fixing our borders. It's not protecting Canadians. It is a government power grab, plain and simple, and it should make everybody very, very uncomfortable. Conservatives did not give this prime minister, or frankly, Canadians did not give this prime minister a blank check to take more power away from Canadians to infringe on their rights. Here's what he's doing. Or actually, I'll say, here's what we should do instead in this bill. We should hire more border agents, the one that are on the front lines, like was done in the past, so they can properly patrol the entire Canadian border. Not in an Ottawa office, but on the ground, with people in uniforms that would enforce the laws that are there. Let's install scanners at major ports to stop the flow of guns and stolen cars in and out of our country. Maybe we should actually keep track of who's coming in and who's leaving this country, so maybe we don't have another situation where the government actually loses count of everybody that they've let in. The soft on crime provisions in C5 and C75 that should put criminals in jail, restore the rule of law again in our country, rather than letting them out on bail minutes, hours, or days after they commit a crime. And while we're at it, let's stop handing out lethal drugs for free, paid for by the taxpayers, and put people in actual treatment. Mr. Speaker, the government is coming here to talk a big game about this bill, but once again, their actions don't match their words. Maybe if the public safety minister should have, right, I guess the public safety minister should probably have a conversation with the justice minister, because he doesn't seem to think there's a problem with crime at all. He mocked Canadians who are fed up with what's going on in their communities, in their neighborhoods, in their homes, in their businesses. He might not think that Canada is the Wild West, but where people are being shot in their own homes, when cars are getting carjacked at random, when people are being mugged in the streets, it is a lot closer to the Wild West than we should ever be comfortable with here. This is a guy who broke the housing market, who broke the long-held consensus on our immigration system, and now he's putting his talents to use at the Justice Department. And I hope that we spare all Canadians of that being a very, very long time. And to get to the core of what's at this Liberal government is you put the same people in charge who broke everything in order to fix it. And the way that they fix it is they bring forward a bill. They tell you that they have good intentions in the bill, and yet it is a power grab. It is a power grab to look at your mail, to ban cash, to do things that they never had power to do before, all under the guise of protecting Canadians and protecting our border. And everybody should look at that very, very seriously. Everybody should look at their intentions very, very seriously with this bill. They say they're going to do one thing, they do the exact opposite, and there are no results ever for this. Thank you.
In comments, the Honourable Minister.
Madam Speaker, I'd like to take a second to give my deepest condolences and sympathy to the Abdul Aleem Faruqi family. What happened to him and his family is outrageous. It is something that angers me as well, and is something that we are making sure doesn't happen to anyone else in the future. We're going to do everything possible in our upcoming justice reform legislation to make sure that the changes that are recommended by our policing agencies are undertaken. But when it comes to C2 is the bill that we're talking about today, that our Stronger Borders Act. I'd like to know if the member opposite is willing to vote in favor of this legislation, as it gives police agencies the tools necessary to crack down on organized crime.
Well, member for Thornhill.
Appreciate the question, but police agencies right across the country have been asking this government for bail reform when they destroyed the justice system. And this minister was in the last government who did exactly that. They've heard from police associations, they've heard from mayors across the country, and they did nothing. And they say that it's coming tomorrow. But how many more people have to be victimized in their community before tomorrow comes? That's the point that the minister should answer in this House during this debate.
Questions and comments.
And comments. The Honourable Member for Vaughan Woodbridge.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I'd like to thank my colleague for her excellent speech. Colleague mentioned something about the rising crime in Vaughan Woodbridge. Madam Speaker, people are legitimately afraid in their own homes in our community. And I was wondering if my colleague could elaborate on the lack of attention that's been paid over since the election, frankly, and far before that, to this very serious issue.
Thornhill.
My colleague comes from the community where Mr. Faruqi was from, who stood with Conservatives during a press conference calling for the very things that the Liberals have broken. That's right. This has gone on far too long for far too many families, and you don't have to be a victim directly of violent crime. It changes the way that you live. It changes your behavior. It changes the fact that you have fear of living in your once safe community. If they don't understand that and they make fun of Canadians for calling it the Wild West, then I don't know what we're doing here.
Questions and comments? The honourable member for Winnipeg South.
South Centre. Thank you, Madam
Sorry.
Just a question for my colleague, because I know we're veering a little bit into what sounds like a conversation about bail reform, which is appropriate given the context of this legislation and what the Justice Minister has been talking about. I wonder if she may have some commentary to add in regards to the role that she believes, in addition to a very significant amount of work ahead of us as a federal government, but the role that provincial governments have to play. In many instances, I know that judges that are using their discretion for folks that are being released are provincial appointees. So some changes to the criminal code, of course, are necessary, but there are administration of justice components as well. I'm wondering if she can comment on the role that she feels provincial governments have, in addition, of course, to that of the federal government. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Member for Thornhill.
I welcome the member back for his second term, which he should know that the federal criminal code is administered out of this place, and that's what we're talking about. We're talking about things like C5, like C75, that take that onerous provision out, that allow weak bail. We're talking about this in light of C2 because they've allowed our streets, they've allowed chaos in our streets. And we will continue talking about crime every single day of the week when they can trying to convince Canadians that they're the ones trying to fix it.
Honourable member for Calgary Crofton.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and to the member for Thornhill. It almost would seem like the Liberals across from us are just wondering, why are these provincial courts not restraining people after they passed a law that required and imposed the least restraint? So, since it was the Secretary of State for Public Safety that introduced this to the debate, I'd like you to maybe comment further. I'd like the member to comment, if she would, on this on the Liberals' response.
Brief answer from the honourable member for Thornhill.
The member well knows, and I'm sure that it would be news to the members on the other side, that provincial judges interpret federal laws right out of the criminal code. That's how it works. But today we're talking about the very fact that these Liberals who have let crime, chaos, drugs, disorder, a crisis in our immigration system, a crisis in our housing system, a crisis in cost of living get out of control, and they believe that they're the ones to fix it, I'm not.
We're out of time. Resuming debate.
Hey, that's something everyone can enjoy.
All right, gang. Oh, a little too close. I'm Aaron. This is Canadian Looney. The channel's Looney. I'm Aaron. But Melissa Lantsman was on fire in that one, eh? Like, share, subscribe. Come back and join us for more videos. Come and check out one of the live question periods. Catch you next time. Thanks for watching.
Oh, yeah. I think it is extraordinary that Mark Carney has become the Prime Minister of Canada. He did a terrible job in Britain of the governorship of the Bank of England. He created a lot of the problems that blew up on my watch and that I got blamed for were actually created by him. He backed Labour in the election and Rachel Reeves's policies, which are leading the country to bankruptcy. So why on earth the Liberal Party of Canada has selected this man, I have no idea. And I think it is illegitimate that this guy has never been elected as a member of Parliament in Canada. I'm utterly puzzled, and the Canadians. Now, I'm not going to tell the Canadians how to vote. Obviously, I want the Conservatives to be elected in Canada. But I think Justin Trudeau has pursued a lot of the same policies that Europe has been pursuing. And America has raced ahead of us. Back at the turn of the millennium, the average Brit was catching up with the average American in terms of income per head.
Wow.
We are now $34,000 a year behind. We are poorer than Mississippi, which is the poorest American state. And the same is true. The same is true of France and Germany, and to some extent of Canada, because they pursued all of these woke policies. High taxes, high spending, not using their natural resources. And Justin Trudeau was the architect of that. And of course, Mark Carney has been the advocate of these policies. So I don't know what is going on in Canada, but in the same way as I think people in Britain need to wake up to what the real threat to our country is, I think they need to wake up in Canada.
WTF.
Here, here.